and I'd like to welcome you to our to the next installment in our Lunch and Learn series. Our goal for this series is that you would be able to bring home just one idea that you can implement in your contact center as a result of having attended this webinar today. So with that in mind, and we have a terrific panel discussion lined up, I think everyone is going to enjoy this, and I know these are my favorite kinds of presentations because I hate PowerPoints. I hate doing them, and I hate watching them even more. So this is going to have no PowerPoints. It's just all going to be conversation. If you have any questions, please feel free to submit a question as a chat. And let me first introduce Kim Morgan, who can walk through the UI with you on our Webex so that you can know how to do that, and then we'll introduce the rest of the panelists. Kim?
Thanks, Vince. So if you guys notice on the bottom right of your Webex window, there are two dialog boxes. One is for chat, the other is Q&A. You can use either of those to get in communication with anybody on the panel or myself or Matt Janicki, our other host. We will be monitoring these at all time. So yeah, we really encourage you to kind of use these features. And if you notice, there are other features as well. There should be a megaphone, bullhorn type icon that says feedback. It's a drop down. If you click it, it's just kind of your standard feedback options. You can answer yes, you can answer no. You can say we're going too fast, too slow. You can show your delight with applause or fake laughter. All the options are available. So we really encourage you to participate as much or as little as you would like.
Great, thank you, Kim. And now let me please introduce the panelists. We'll start ladies first. Shaughnessy, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Sure thing. My name is Shaughnessy Spears. I am Senior Product Manager at Intellipeer. We are a CPaaS software, communications platform as a service. And the product areas that I oversee there include Smart Flows, which is our visual drag and drop builder for communications and automations flows. Engage, which is an outbound campaign management tool, and our Atmosphere portal. Atmosphere is our suite. Atmosphere portal is our access point for all of our applications. So handful of things there, but our aim is just helping folks build communications flows and automations that integrate into their systems.
Great, thank you, Shaughnessy. Chris, would you like to go next and introduce yourself, please?
Sure. Thanks, Vince. I'm Chris Crosby. I head up Exact. We are a contact center AI company with a heavy focus on conversational AI, automation in general, and then analytics to bring all that together. We got our start in the smart city space in partnership with Cisco and some other companies, and we're able to leverage that technology to bring, infuse customer experience and employee experience with AI throughout various points of that journey.
Dale, would you like to go next, please? I muted myself and forgot that I had.
No problem.
No problem. The awkward silence there. We're good.
On post-take, we'll take that out. No. My name is Dale Zawinski. I am the SVP of Sales for Smart Action. We do conversational AI in the voice and digital channels. We sit across any contact center platform. And so we've been around for about 10 years, have a lot of clients. We specialize mostly in voice and have been working a lot more on digital, both in the chat and SMS side. We see a lot of people going over to the SMS side of the world. Back to you, Vince.
Great.
No
Thank
mute.
you, Dale.
Okay.
Excellent. Clade, would you like to go next, please? Last, but certainly not least.
Yes, Vince, thanks. My name is Clay Jedi, and I work for Mindsight. I'm one of the principal consultants here at Mindsight. And Mindsight is basically an IT consulting firm, right? We have a very big focus on contact center and customer experience. And similar to Vitech, we deploy contact center solutions and advanced technologies like virtual agents, which is the presentation is today on the virtual agent piece of this. So back to you, Vince.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, I am so excited to get started with this. There has been so much information that's been out in the news and the general public just on automation and artificial intelligence and predictions from Elon Musk about technology taking over the world and threatening our very livelihood. And here we are with the practical applications of self-serve where customers, clients, patients have the ability to interact directly with our organizations without any type of human interaction. And so I'm really interested in seeing where the technology is going. And I would like to start out with a very basic question. What types of interactions have you found to be easily adaptable, or maybe just converted? Take out the word easy. Let's just say converted to self-serve. And let's just go through it as we introduced ourselves. Shaughnessy, would you like to take that one, and I'll give everybody a chance to respond with their thoughts?
Sure, absolutely. I think that you'll find that there are a lot of sort of usual suspects that make sense. That people expect to see, that would be always a good place to start, right? People always expect to see the ability to, if there's a status, check my status of my order, make a payment, things that are relatively simple and rote, but that maybe your agents and representatives do a lot of in their day, and that the customer is kind of primed to anticipate. But it really does depend a lot on your company and your particular vertical that you're in. I think it makes the most sense for a company to kind of do an audit of what processes they're currently supporting, and kind of just work through how valuable these are to automate versus how complex would it be for us to automate, and kind of use that to prioritize how to work down that list and what makes the most sense for them, because I think it's gonna vary from one company to another.
Excellent. I like how you bring out the ROI in this, which is always critical, and we'll get into that a little bit later with some other questions. Chris, what are your thoughts on the applications that are easy to be converted to self-serve?
Yeah, great question, Vince. So I'm going to try this since I'm not sharing decks today. I don't know if you can see this.
Oh, I love it. Yes, we can see that.
It's a quadrant, and on one axis here, the lower axis, we have call complexity, and then on the other axis, we have call value, or interaction value and complexity. And so if you were to, as a lightweight assessment or starting point, plot your call drivers or interaction drivers, why people contact you to begin with, into these quadrants. Up in this corner, high value, high complexity, you're probably going to have sales calls, right? Down in the lower quadrants, you're probably going to have things like checking order status, or even like removed from catalog, right? Like, why would you waste time with a live agent for that? We found that as a good starting point to start to assess the opportunities. But it's also important to understand that as you look at sort of a maturity model of automation, that it doesn't have to be an all or nothing type of a scenario where maybe part of what you automate is just the mundane touch tone IVR that you have today, and you introduce a more intelligent front door that can, improve your routing. So instead of saying press 1 for sales, 2 for check order status, open it up to how can I help you today? And FAQs are generally a pretty easy thing to tackle up front. And so you can start to peel those off, but then also improve that customer experience down through that routing tree. But then also, one last comment is we also don't think about it just as eliminating contact center volume, but look at opportunities, to extend the customer experience through new mediums that could be automated. Dale mentioned SMS a minute ago. We're actually moving into opportunities now with customers where we're creating new interactions that are automated. So maybe they're standing in line outside of a retail store and you want to engage them with SMS through a chat bot. So there's kind of this two-sided coin now of eliminate call volume into the call center, but also how can we leverage this new technology to improve the customer journey and experience wherever they're at.
Wow, that's terrific. I had to draw that out on a piece of paper in front of me because I wanted to just have it a little closer, and I love graphs and matrices like that. Dale, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with Chris and Shaughnessy. I think that graph is a good representation. To add on to that, I think anything that's pattern-based, I think is very easy to pull off. So we talked about order status. There could be scheduling. There's a lot of things, but always look for something that is pattern-based and something that's repeatable. If you have something that's a snowflake, every call needs like some interpretation, those are not going to be good to automate. But if they have a pattern to them, like the ones we just talked about today, those are easy to pull off. And then to go a little bit further on what Chris was saying on like an intelligent front door, there's a lot of stuff in like healthcare and banking that have PII or have stuff that like HIPAA authentication. So just having the authentication side of it takes a lot of time off the contact center. It could be minutes off the contact center. You may not contain the entire call, but if you can actually drive the authentication and capture the data for the agents, then that's another good place to grab some minutes out of the contact center.
Excellent. Thank you. Yes, as an example, the other day I had an appointment reminder call for my annual physical, and I couldn't confirm because I actually had a conflict, so it was great that they had called me. And that part was simple. Then it was rescheduling it, right? And that's where the wheels came off the bus. Because the date I came up with, oh, sorry, there's nothing available on that day. So I try another day. No, nothing available on that day. So then I put in a wider range, something like a month. Oh, nothing available. It's like, oh, screw this. I'm calling the contact center. And I hung up and called. So, just as an example on that value versus complexity, scheduling it is very complex, but confirming is easy. So high value, low complexity. Now, as we get into that, what do you find are some of the common pitfalls in designing and implementing successful applications? Dale, let me go ahead and start with you on that one.
Sure. So prior to Smart Action, I actually worked at Oracle and did a lot of work in the chatbot space and automation space there. And what I found from that experience and in Smart Action, the design aspect, like actually building out the conversations properly. So if you just take what your IVRs say and then you try to automate it with virtual agents, that's not a good experience. So you got to kind of design the conversation flows into how people are going to have conversations with the bot. They're going to have a conversation different with a bot than they are with a person. And that's just a reality. So at Smart Action, we have actually Hollywood scriptwriters that actually write our conversation flows. And so they're used to designing these conversation flows to people that don't have any interaction back. And so you got to kind of think about it in that perspective. And once you can get a little bit of empathy in there, like you got to get engagement early on in the process. If you get engagement, then the person will really understand that they will have they'll get the answer from the bot and they won't have to zero out or ask for an agent. If they can't get the answers from the bot immediately, they're going to just hang up, hit zero, try to get out. So I'd say try to get engagement as soon as you can and take a good amount of time on the conversation flow side of it.
I love it. Hollywood scriptwriters? How can we work into that? Well, do you feel lucky, punk? Shaughnessy, what are your thoughts on some of the common pitfalls?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what Dale said. You know, spending a good amount of time in the design process and empathy for the caller is going to be critical. I think one of the most common pitfalls that I've observed there is not doing enough design for the non-happy path, right? Not having good enough handling when things go wrong, because no matter how good our automation, our speech recognition, our natural language understanding, no matter how good they are, speech is variable, audio conditions are variable. They're always going to be opportunities for things to go wrong, and I think a caller is okay with that as a graceful way to deal with that in the flow when it happens, and treat them appropriately, whether it's switch to DTMF or immediately route to agent or whatever it may be. But I think making sure there's enough attention on that graceful degradation is also really important in the design.
Excellent. Yes, as I think about when I'm working with a client and developing a flow, and I do what's called the salesman's flow, which is basically where everything goes right. And then you take that and everyone agrees, yeah, that's what we want to have happen. Now you hand it to somebody who's really smart, and they go through all the what-if scenarios. People like Chris and Clay. Chris, what do you think? What has your experience been in common pitfalls you would invite people to try and avoid?
I agree with everything that Shaughnessy and Dale said. Although we don't have Hollywood script writers, we actually A/B test our scripting. But I think the key thing that we discovered and the way we approached this differently was we actually started building our conversational IVRs as a managed service. We started with Amazon Lex, had a horrible time with it. And then we moved into Google Dialogflow and had a little bit better time with it. And then we got mad and decided to build our own. And the reason we did that is, so going through those pitfalls, we see other customers. I can't tell you how many people we talk to that say, yeah, Google makes this thing sound easy, right? All I need is a software developer. I'm going to go build this bot. It's going to take out 30-40% of my call volume, and we're all going to be happy. And then they get into it, and they realize, well, how do I know if the thing is working? What are my customer experience metrics that I'm looking for? You know, Shaughnessy was talking about the happy path and the failures, but most people don't even know where the thing is failing, where it's succeeding, you know, or they'll put in a metric like success percentage or containment rate, like the traditional IVR, like Dale mentioned earlier. Like, you don't want to design the thing like replace touchstones with voice prompts, because Nuance did that for years and it was still a horrible customer experience. So where we start is, or recommend is, start with success in mind. What does it look like, and how do you know when you get there? And the ones we look at is treat the virtual agent like a live agent that's going to need continual monitoring and coaching and training. And when you think about it from that perspective, the tools that tend to be missing are the workflow piece of that, right? So you put the measurements, dashboards, and analytics in place, and then you have the workflow around, companies like, I think Smart Action does this, we do this, we do it as a managed service where we have a team that does that. But we also open it up and let people do it on their own with our QA tools. But I think those two things, understanding the visibility into the bot performance and what metrics are going to be important, whether it's average handle time or people having to repeat themselves, exception management, and then that workflow piece, whether you hire a company to do that or you build that process internally. Those two things typically do not get factored into most companies' buying decision when they try to go build a bot. From my experience, they oversimplify it and say, let's go do this, it's easy, and then they get into it, and $100,000 later, $200,000 later, full of resources, they realize they got to find somebody to help them with it.
Yes.
Yeah, Vince, from our perspective on the implementation side, just like Chris said, I think the most important thing for us on the implementation side is keeping track of the success rates and the failure rates, and then going back and having the reporting and redesigning when needed, right? So it doesn't start with design. Design never, it's the finished product. You always have to go back and redesign and adjust. And that's something that I think Smart Actions does a very good job, where when they deploy something, they say, we're going to own this for the life of the product. It's not just that we're going to hand it off. And Dale, we've talked about this in the past, where you live with the customer and take care of it as they grow and they have different issues, right?
Yeah, and I think Chris is spot on. I mean, both Clayton and Chris, like the problem isn't like building these things. Like you can build them with a lot of technologies, although as Chris said, with Google Dialogflow or Lex, you're going to run into these problems. But it's figuring out where they're failing in the process. And then what do you do about that failure? So then you got to change it up, A/B test it, figure out, like, is it the words that we use in the conversation flow? Like, did we confuse the customer? And so if we confuse the customer, what can we put in there to make it not confusing? And so that takes a good deal of time and effort. And that's what you just specialize in when you bring in someone like me or Chris into the conversation.
And if I could, I want to add one more comment on to what Dale said there. So that quadrant I built, I showed is a simplification, but there are certain things inside of each of these call types that can be problematic, such as recognizing addresses. So we spent a lot of time, training our machines to recognize street addresses or alphanumeric order number strings or account numbers. So even though like an order lookup or even like rescheduling an appointment may seem easy, there are little gotchas that can happen inside of those different customer flows. And I think a lot of folks don't consider that when they go down the do-it-yourself path.
Yes. I've been amazed lately in how well the address works in just getting out a part of the address and it fills in the rest because it knows the home or the business address, and I think that has really improved. So as we think about these KPIs, right? When we're online shopping, they typically look at one of the successes. They look at average order, but they look at how much was left in the shopping cart, right? Because that's a matter of someone who's unsatisfied. They just left things. I couldn't complete it. Within building self-serve applications, what are some of the things? I know we've talked about containment rate, and define that for me. What does that really mean? And then what are the supporting KPIs that lead up to containment rate? Shaughnessy, what do you think?
Yeah. So in terms of how a containment rate is kind of broadly defined is, how many calls are contained within the IVR completely, as in they don't progress onto an agent. But when you start to break that down, what you realize is there are all types of reasons why a call could be contained in an IVR, right? It could be contained for a good reason, i.e. they completed their task, and any post-call survey is gonna win you, an outstanding rating, or it could be contained because they got frustrated and hung up. And so there's a sense of a good containment and a bad containment that you want to be able to have a way to understand. Right. But there's also, it's not the, that's not the, the end all be all of ways to measure your IVR, right? There are others too, like you mentioned, abandonment, which kind of feeds into that negative containment a little bit. And there's, the concept of like a zero out, right? Like, at what point do they say, I'm just not going to listen to this IVR. I'm just going to go straight to an agent. And you want that to be low, right? So I think there are lots of different things to look at when you're looking at KPIs in a self-serve application.
Excellent. Thank you. Chris or Dale, you guys have any thoughts on other KPIs that we should be, recommending that our clients look at?
I think
Dale, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I think for me, it's just total minutes out of the contact center. Like I really don't like this containment rate conversation because I think it's misleading. I think it misleads customers. I think everyone comes in and because Google and Lex and all, everyone's talking about containment rate. The reality is, as Chauncey was saying, it could be the customer's business rules that take people out. Like if you don't understand something, then pass it over to the agent, or like, so you have all of these things, and then maybe the data is not available. So it's not necessarily the technology that could be an issue. It could be the way you guys are setting it up. And that goes back to our previous conversation. You actually have to like go through these calls and understand what's happening and analyze them to actually, because setting up a virtual agent isn't like you set it up and like voila, like the angels come out and like it's a destination. This is like a journey. So you're continuously evolving it. And I think that's the other problem with the do-it-yourself is you think you set up this agent and you're just going to let it run. Well, you're going to be sadly mistaken. So for me, it's minutes out of the contact center and repeat callers. Like if you're getting repeat callers, that means they're calling into the system, they're zeroing out, and then they're calling back in, or they go in via chat. Those are the two things that I talk about. When I talk to clients, when we build our ROIs, we talk about containment at a high level, but there's a lot of value that gets driven from partial containment. And by partial containment, it could be we get the person's name, address, and order number, but we can't figure out the status because we couldn't connect to the FedEx API or something. Like there's some random thing that happened, but we got like a bunch of data that we then pass to the agent that they can take the call from there. So I think it's more about the minutes and less about containment.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is this is really complex. This is not a simple thing.
Yeah, and people try to boil it down to containment, but then you get into different vendors talk about containment in different ways. So, someone might say, well, because I authenticated them, I contained the call. Well, you didn't contain the call. You authenticated somebody. The person still went to the agent. Like, so right. You get these, it's a, are we comparing apples to apples or what's happening? So minutes is a good way to do it.
Excellent. Chris, I think you had a comment.
Yeah, no, I like minutes out of the contact center as sort of an overarching, or sort of one dimension of it. I think it's important to, put your call center operations hat back on and think about if this were a live agent, how would we measure their impact, right, or their experience? So, I'm not a fan of containment rate as a metric either because of what Shaughnessy and Dale said. There's a whole lot of use cases for this technology that is not binomial. It's not yes or no, it worked or it didn't, right? Like the routing or the authentication. But as an example, a call could be contained in the IVR, but maybe that person had to repeat their address 3 times before the bot got it. That's going to create a bad customer experience. So if each one of these sort of prompts or interactions with a customer, you need to be able to measure that so that you can improve that experience or re-architect it over time, but then also tie it back to the contact center, right? So there is minutes out of the contact center in more traditional IVR, but if you're deflecting calls through an SMS type of IVR, that's going to have an impact, a financial impact to the contact center as well, right? So look at the different stakeholders in the contact center. Your CFO is going to have a set of metrics that are important to him or her. So is your operational team. They're going to have a set of set of metrics, and your CX team. So, we look at it again as like, it's not just an IVR, it's more around an agent that's sort of supplementing or augmenting live agents, and how can you measure that? And what you find is that when you tie that back to the contact center, you can demonstrate this did improve our service level and overall customer experience, or it reduced total handle time for a customer interaction. And, think of it that way and work backwards. And I think you land on the right metrics for your organization.
It almost has to do, well, not almost, it has to do with identifying what are the strategic objectives for this self-serve application, and then the KPIs that roll out of that.
Right.
Right? If it's about completely serving someone, so maybe there we're looking at a completion rate. What percentage of the orders were completed, or what percentage of the time were they able to get the status of the order, if that's what it's about. But if it's about gathering information and shaving minutes off of the AHT, then if we look at it, did we shave off any time when they were talking to an agent? Sure. But if we doubled the amount of time that the customer was on the phone dealing because of the time with automation, did we really do anything? No. We went backwards. Yeah. Because the CX was screwed up.
Another big thing that we see on the implementation side, and I think Chris and Dale both mentioned this as well, but having this continuous journey, right? Like whatever happened with a virtual agent, whatever happened in that interaction that the customer had with the virtual agents should be made available to the agent, right? So even the call didn't get contained or something that played a role in taking care of the issue, whatever happened, it should be shared, right? And that applies even when you switch channels, right? So if somebody starts to chat on their website and they get frustrated with the chat bot and they pick up a call and they want to call, you know, we try to have all that data available for everybody when the call gets to the agent. There's nothing more frustrating than getting authenticated and then, you know, getting to the agent and they ask you the same thing, right? Just because we didn't contain the call.
Excellent. Thank you, Clay. So we've talked a lot about the applications and the measurements and you know, various aspects of self-serve. Let's dive into, you know, a couple of topics that I think are near and dear to everyone's heart who's interested in this, and that has to do with, first off, what would be the typical costs of a solution like this, and then secondly, what are we talking about in terms of deployment? So let's start with cost first. Chris, let you take that one to start with. What is this technology? What is a decent self-serve application cost? How do we go about figuring out a budget?
I think that's the big question, right? The two variables that are going to drive that, two pieces of the cost equation, are the initial setup and implementation. And that cost is primarily going to be driven on what systems the bot needs to interact with. If you're just deploying an FAQ bot or simple routing, that's going to be lower on the cost spectrum, or even integrating with something like Salesforce or Zendesk, right? But if you're integrating into Epic or some mainframe or green screen, that's going to drive cost, right? And then beyond that, you know, and that could be $5K to $50K or up, you know, just depending again on what the thing needs to interface with. Generally, getting it integrated into whatever ACD or telephony or CPaaS platform you have is pretty straightforward these days. So again, the cost is going to be driven primarily on implementation, and then ongoing. You know, our model is you know, more of a conversations as a service, managed service, and it's, you know, 15-20% of what a live agent would cost, and that's all in. Now, if you're going to do it yourself, then again, you have to factor in the staffing requirements needed to maintain and train and build the bot, which is going to be more than most people anticipate in our experience.
You're muted.
Oh, I hate it when I do that. I was trying to be so polite.
I just left you speechless for a minute.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, my lips were moving, but there was no sound coming out, right? So bottom line, Chris, you're saying that an automated solution is, did you say 15 to 20% of what an agent costs?
Generally, I think, I mean, sometimes less, but generally, you know, with the cost of these things coming down and the technology getting better, I think that's kind of the range. Okay.
Shaughnessy, what are your thoughts on typical cost for a self-serve application?
I mean, yeah, as far as cost goes, it is going to depend. I largely agree with Chris. I do think that there are ways that you can look to kind of spread that cost out over time. If you don't necessarily have to kind of replace everything, right? There are our solution, for example, allows you to kind of build pieces that can bolt on to the solution that you currently have, whatever contact center you have, and kind of look for opportunities to automate in small ways, and keep your costs low up front. Is that if that's what you want to do? But I mean, I do think that where you start to see those costs grow is going to be, like Chris was saying, when you get into more complex integrations, or when you get into wanting to build good, rich, conversational interfaces. I think those require, a degree of managed services, professional services handling to really do in an effective way, a positive way. So I think you can expect to see some costs come from those kinds of things too. But yeah, those are my thoughts.
Excellent, thank you. Dale, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I echo everything everybody said. The way we look at it is, I look at it from a value perspective. So what is the ROI we're driving? Can we map it back to an ROI? But in general, we break ours out into two pieces: implementation and ongoing, on a monthly basis, which is usually on the usage side. What I usually tell customers is, do you have a $90,000 problem? And if you have a $90,000 problem, then we have a solution for you. If it's, if you can solve it by adding people and headcount and buildings and training and all that kind of stuff, and your turnover is less than that, then manage it with real people.
Excellent.
And Vince, just to add on to that, what Dale just said, right? I mean, the problem has to be big enough where it makes sense to actually build and deploy something, right, and get an ROI out of it. One thing that's interesting though, like I've been hearing about all these new startups that are using AI and machine learning to basically take the implementation time and implementation cost by having their AI and machine learning technology listen to thousands of calls. Like they will take a year worth of calls and have their AI, artificial intelligence, listen to these calls and learn how the agents tackled several problems, right? And then using all that data and trying to basically use it for implementation purposes. Kind of the same thing when they did when, you said Elon Musk and self-driving earlier, instead of telling the AI, what does a chair look like, and trying to draw like what a chair looks like in every different position, different shapes, you just tell the AI, go to Google and look at all the pictures of a chair, right? And that's how you learn what a chair looks like. And they're doing the same thing now with call recordings.
I mean, I love Dale's perspective on this as well, coming from, the parsing the speech side of this. But I think the complexity is less on that and more on, if we think about Vince's use case earlier where he was trying to schedule an appointment, there was probably a breakdown between whatever voice app they were using and the scheduling system. That tends to be, in my experience, where the complexity and the breakage is more prone to happen, versus analyzing thousands of phone calls. Because what happens is once you start to analyze these things in the cloud in a multi-tenant environment, like we are, you build that library of knowledge and training, right? And that's how Musk does it with Tesla. Is all that all that data from those cars get piped to the cloud, and they can analyze that at scale, which is another benefit from not doing it yourself. Because if you go build your own bot, you lose all of that, sort of macro knowledge. But I think it's a lot of times the problem is getting it to work with the back office systems.
Yes, because the rest of it we can analyze data and adjust. It's when the CTI fails or the back office system itself fails, which, by the way, has been a reason why the agents have been complaining about it for years,
right?
And dragging down their AHT or pulling up their AHT, I should say, because they can't get it to work and get the answers they need.
So Vince, you said something interesting. I just want to make sure we talk about with the group. Like, people think you're gonna implement a virtual agent and AHT is gonna magically go down. Your AHT may go up, and AHT may go up because the bot is taking out all the easy calls, all the, repetitive, redundant calls. And so it's kind of like this misnomer that, hey, my AHT is going to go down. I just don't want people factoring that into their ROI.
Excellent.
That's right.
While screen pop may drop the AHT.
Sure.
This may not, because what happens is the self-serve strips off all the easy calls. So now the only thing left are the hard calls, which have a longer AHT.
Which makes sense, and you have to now try to measure your contact center agents a little bit differently. Like if you're measuring them on AHT, which in general, in most call centers is probably a bad thing. You probably want your call center people like being friendly with people and having, but if it's costing you a lot of money, you just have to be careful. But it will, like I hear a lot of it, and sometimes someone will say it in a sales conversation and then they'll remember that. And then like during implementation, they're like, I thought you said our AHT was going to go down. And I said, yeah, we'll be able to take out some of the minutes and parts of the call, but the rest of your calls, the AHT may go up. And so like, then you have call center management operations having heart attacks.
Yes. Whereas the total talk minutes went down.
Right.
The AHT for each individual call went up.
To the agents.
To the agent, right. Exactly. Which, and we're kind of dancing around this one and talking about this because really what the heart of it is getting to ROI. How do we achieve the ROI with the solution? And I remember when I was a young salesman and presenting a solution to a CFO, and the CFO was interested in the ROI. So I had this whole business case prepared and outlined how it was going to happen. He goes, okay, now help me understand this. Is this in green dollars or blue dollars? I'm like, what? What do you mean? He goes, well, blue dollars are savings, but nothing ever happens. It really never hits the bottom line. Green dollars are when heads roll, and we have less people than we used to have. So what is this, green dollars or blue dollars? And that's the case in this as well. Nobody wants to admit it, but the only way to get a real ROI is you're going to need less people. Now, hopefully you can do it through attrition and not by cutting staff, but ultimately it happens. No question about it. I want to encourage the audience to, if you have any questions, because we're going to wrap up in just a couple of minutes here. If you have any questions for any of the panelists, please submit them, and Kim or Matt will let me know. Kim, have we had any questions thus far?
So far, no. I think you guys have actually done a really thorough job. So hats off.
Okay. So then the last thing I'm going to ask before I turn it over to any questions that may come in has to do with the deployment timeline. How long does it typically take from when a company decides and says go until they're up and running? Dale, I'll let you start with this one, please.
Yeah, so there's two big things that I put caveats on this because everyone asks this question. One is the two big pulls in the tent are sign off on the design, because we spent a good deal of time on design. So it's actually been eye-opening to me when we went into a utility. We went through the design process. I thought it was super simple. We were doing a couple of call types. It took a whole week, and I thought it was going to take a day. And actually it took more than a week, because then when we left there's additional conversations, but you may have people signing off on legal terminology. Like, this isn't your IVR where you're going to press 1 for this or 2 for that. You may have, people that need to sign off, and everybody that gets involved in that conversation, it just amplifies the anxiety around, okay, we're going to be touching our customers with this language. How do we do this language? And so a lot of people have a lot to say to it. So I say once sign off is done, and once we know that the data is available, like the APIs are available, because that's the other big pull in the tent. Like, they're like, yeah, we can get that data. And then it's like one piece of data we need to like make authentication happen. Maybe it's like date of birth, and they never pass that through the API. Now you got to have someone on the customer side expose that piece of data, and that could take however long on their side. So if we have the data and we have design sign off, we say it takes between 6 and 10 weeks. So that's a typical implementation based on we have sign off on those two things.
Excellent. Thank you. Chris, what are your thoughts on implementation timeline?
Yeah, I mean, I would put the same caveats in place. We launched some bots, some agents during COVID, and those required sign off not just from legal, but also like certified medical staff and professionals, right? So there's those things that can add time and complexity, and just making sure the data and the APIs and all of that stuff is available, and getting through security assessments with the cybersecurity team, and those types of, I don't want to call them red tape, but beyond that, I mean, we've deployed conversational IVRs in 48 hours before, or 4 to 8 weeks. I mean, it really just depends on, depends on the customer and how quickly they need to move, or how, and you can do it in layers. You can peel off some early call types to triage a situation, which we've done, or then map out the longer customer journey, and back office integrations, which can take more time. But yeah, I mean, I think that 2 days to 2 months, depending on complexity and integration, is a good time frame, good timeline.
I love it. Eat that elephant one bite at a time.
Yeah, that's right.
So Shaughnessy, it's the 18th. We'd really like to have this up and running by the end of the month. Can you do it?
Oh yeah, I mean, you can have it.
Get out your checkbook, man.
Good, cheap, and fast. You get to pick two, right? No,
right.
I think that I really love Chris's point about starting a little bit of time, and that's what we talk about at Intellipeer too. When we talk to our clients, we call it, I'm sure others have heard this too, but we call it crawl, walk, run, right? So let's look at what your ultimate goal is, and that we'll call that, what does a run look like? And then kind of work backwards from, okay, what are the first, little steps that we can take to get there? And often the first POC you can put together in, like Chris said, it could be done in a matter of hours, but it's not so much the technical constraints that are the problem. I think Dale and Chris made great points that the process management, stakeholder coordination, requirements gathering, testing, hopefully fairly robust testing before you roll out to customers. All of that takes time. So I think yeah, it could range from a couple of hours, days, to if you when you really get down to it and want to get into the details of testing and going through all the proper channels, probably 2 to 3 months.
I want to piggyback one more comment on that, Vince. It's okay to start with one call type or one call driver and expand from there. And the difference between what we're talking about here collectively is, multi-channel bots, and between that and a chat bot is a chat bot. Once you put that thing on a website, customers expected to know everything, right? Otherwise, they're going to ask it a question, and if it doesn't know the answer, they're going to puke on it. Whereas with these technologies, you can direct those customers and deeply train, or, just peel off specific call types or interaction types through SMS and voice, then that can deliver the customer experience, but not have to tackle everything at once and screw up your customer experience. And that can accelerate timelines and frankly take out cost as well. As you look at what interactions make sense to automate.
That's right on. I love it. Thank you all for your thoughts and sharing your experiences with us. Kit, do we have any questions from the audience?
No, actually, we are right at the 10:01 mark. So I think we're going to wrap up.
Okay. Well, we actually ran a little bit over, but I think the quality of the content made up for any time extra time we may have used. So I appreciate everyone, again, participating today. Please join us for our next webinar, which is going to be on predictions and projections for 2021. Wouldn't you all like to know the impact that COVID's going to have? Clayt has scheduled some time to do some deep meditation on that and assess all the data. And so we're looking forward to that. Again, thank you all for your time and take care. Goodbye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks for having me.
Bye.